You're listening to the Homeownership podcast by Momentum Realty, real estate talk for buying, selling, and owning property.
Hey guys, Sean Patrick Maloney here, broker owner of Momentum Realty, located in Hanover, Massachusetts. Welcome to episode 51, Mistakes to Avoid When Buying a Home. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. I want to talk to you about buying a home. There's a lot of mistakes that are made that people end up putting themselves out of the ability to buy a home, they end up spending too much money for a home, or they just end up really having a lot of stress when they make a mistake and they have to go back and fix it. So let's talk today about some of the things you can do to avoid having trouble while you're trying to purchase a home. One of the most important ones to remember is your pre-approval is based on your current financial status. That means no new debt. Lots of people go out, they get a pre-approval, and in between that time, they decide they need a new car, they decide they're going to join a different gym, maybe get a new phone, or they decide to open other accounts with other companies. It's really important that you keep your financial standing the exact way it is the day that you get pre-approved, if not better it. But remember, when you're thinking about bettering it, you want to speak with your mortgage professional at every given time you decide to do something. Because a lot of people don't even realize, but something as simple as paying off all your credit cards, as much as it seems like a positive move, can actually be a bad move. Because a lot of these companies, when they're looking at credit, they look at it as sporadic movement when you pay off a card in a short period of time. I know that makes absolutely no sense, but unfortunately they get to write the rules, and a lot of us don't understand the rules, and that's why it's really important to pair yourself with a good mortgage professional and to have them explain to you what you should and shouldn't do. So anytime you're thinking about spending and you're going to be making a major purchase, a major payoff, possibly opening a new account, first phone call made during the process should be over to your mortgage professional and say to them, hey, I'm about to pay off my credit card. Is that a good idea? Because they might say to you, no, that's not a good idea. And the other reason it might not be a good idea is you may have only a certain amount of money in your bank account. And when it comes to having money for future payments, as well as money for the down payment, as well as money for the closing costs, the bank may want to see that you have more in reserves, as they call it, and by paying off that credit card, that takes the money from your bank account where it will be reserves, and it puts it into the credit card company's payoff, which you can't use your credit card for reserves. So yes, it opens up debt and frees it up, and you can actually use it in the future, but that money can't be used towards the purchase of the home. So it means that the free cash flow that you had has gone down. Simple things like joining gym memberships and stuff, most of the time you call the lender, you're going to be okay, because at $20 a month or $50 a month, it's not going to be a killer unless you're right there on your numbers and you're trying to buy at your max budget, because that can be something simple. Another thing that I mentioned was phones. A lot of people don't realize, but when you buy a phone through a phone company, you don't actually buy the phone, you pay monthly. They actually attach to your credit the full amount of the phone and then that monthly payment. So that can be a monthly payment that is also listed somewhere in the realm of $30 to $50 a month, which, again, not huge money. You may be able to do it, but definitely check in with the lender. The new car one is definitely the one that is the big to do, especially if you have no car payment and you suddenly take on a car payment, or if you have, say, a $150 a month car payment and you jump up to $400 a month. They're going to look at that, plus the car insurance increase, which a lot of times can get you pre-approved for much less money, which means that overall you hurt the purchase price of your home in order to buy a new car. Now, there are some exceptions to the rules, and again, you always want to check with the mortgage professional. Like if you got in a car accident, they may be more forgiving to it, but you do got to remember, at the end of the day, whether you consider them forgiving or non-forgiving, they want to know that you have the money to actually make these payments. So whether you like it or not, if you put a down payment on the car, that takes away reserves, and then you have a new car payment that adds on payments, it's actually hurting you on both sides of the scale. So it's a drastic movement. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to make these things. And like I said the entire time during this little section, it's really important to involve your mortgage professional. A lot of people are worried, I don't want to bother them, I don't want to have them have to talk to me all the time. Feel free. And if you don't want to bother them that much, shoot them an email. They're usually very good about reading their emails and getting back to you at the time where they can. But I would say they'll never mind because they want to be a big part of your financial decisions, and most mortgage professionals want to work with you for the rest of your life. So they want to be a financial advisor for you to make sure that you're able to make the home purchases and sales you want to, and you're able to get what you need. So let's talk about another thing, oversharing with others. Often it's exciting to tell your friends and family how much you're pre-approved for, or what you're going to get and everything like that. And sometimes oversharing, we don't realize, but it might be your best friend that's the competition in the market for a home. So if you find a home and it's a marketplace where we have very tight inventory and you tell your friend about a house and then they tell their friend, you might be bidding versus somebody that you told about the home. I know this sounds a little bit selfish, but when you have a marketplace where you have 10 or 15 homes on the market where there's normally 50 to 70, everybody's looking for new inventory. So when you tell somebody about it, it may be a little more exciting than you want it to be, and then they end up sharing it again with other friends, and then the next thing you know, there's a bunch of people bidding on the house. So don't overshare during these times where we have tough marketplaces. Tell them after you've already got it accepted. Tell them after you've already got the house under agreement. Don't tell them before. When you're working on actually putting in an offer on a house, one thing you want to think about is holding your pre-approval and putting it out in quantities based on what you're offering. A lot of times people get a pre-approval and it's a massive pre-approval compared to what they're going to purchase at. Maybe they get a $400,000 and they're buying at $350,000 or $375,000, and then they think, okay, well, I'm going to submit that with the offer because it shows them I'm overqualified for the situation. Well, in the current marketplace we're in, where people are doing multi-bid or where it's very difficult to buy a house at anything less than full price, by showing them that you can afford full price, it's very often that the buyer will get denied their offer and the seller will say, hey, I want full price because you can afford it. So even though affordability has nothing to do with the price that they should get, sellers often get greedy when they see a pre-approval that's above what they're being offered. The other thing is, in a bidding war, if they're looking at it and you're already at the top number and you're winning currently, there are agents out there that don't tell the truth, and they will come back at you again and they'll ask for another offer based on the fact that they know you're pre-approved for more and they know that you can possibly move up. Working with a good lender, you should be able to get a pre-approval Monday through Sunday in pretty much any hour of the day. Of course, there's exceptions to this, but you do want to talk to your lender ahead of time. And I always say, when you're going to a house and you think you're really interested, never a bad idea to text or email the lender to say, hey, I'm going to look. Could you make me a pre-approval for these prices ahead of time? Most of the time, pre-approval is really just a Microsoft Word document or a PDF, and the person simply just types in the new number and sends it over to you. Some of the more advanced lenders nowadays even give you access to a pre-approval portal where you're able to adjust your own pre-approval up into the amount that they have already allowed you as a budget. You can talk to your lender and see if they offer that option, but just make sure that you're making pre-approvals based on the offers you're making. Now, one time you may want to put a pre-approval in, and it's more, is when you're buying a house and you're offering full price and you want to show you're well qualified. If you do that, that's going to tell the seller, hey, not only can they afford the $350,000, but they can afford $400,000, so they're going to get approved on this loan. They're going to have no trouble getting it. They're putting a lot of money down. That's great. So those are rare occurrences. Most often we try to put pre-approvals in for just exactly what you're offering, and then if you have to go up on the offer, just make sure you get a new pre-approval that shows that you're capable of getting the extra money. Next, let's talk about extending the search. Extending the search can be a mistake in different ways. Sometimes people extend the search out because they're not finding what they want for the price they want, so they extend out to a different area. Rather than thinking that they can fix a home up within the area that they're looking, they think, I'm going to go further because I can afford more. Well, I did a podcast about a week ago that I talked about the fact of extenuating costs that people don't understand. Extending your search out and adding 20 to 30 minutes to commute may mean you add an hour worth of childcare a week. It may mean that you add extra gas money, extra miles, wear and tear on the car, as well as the loss of lifetime. As far as an hour a day across the entire year is 365 hours of your life, and that's just if you're driving an hour a day extra. So extending your search out may seem like you're saving money, but in the long run, if you move away from the people that you know, you're going to be traveling there. If you move away from your childcare, you're going to be traveling there. If you move away from your work, you're going to be traveling there. If you move away from a gym that costs $20 a month and all you have is $100 a month, that's an $80 a month extra cost. So don't be afraid to dig into the costs and look at the entire equation instead of just thinking, if I extend my way out, things are going to be less expensive. because I can tell you whenever you move to areas, there's a reason things cost more in metro areas versus less in rural areas, and that's because of convenience and because of the other factors of money that are being spent. And also, another one is if you're somebody that commutes into Boston or into any other city and you're looking and you're trying to figure out what works best, remember if you move from the red line to the purple line, you're talking about an extremely more expensive commute and also more time. So just keep that in mind when you're looking to extend out searches. Now, I just said when extending out searches, sometimes think about repairs. That's another one I want to warn you about. Make sure if you're going to take on repairs that you have the proper people out. Of course, you're going to have a home inspection. Most often everybody does. But also, before you take those new repairs on that you know about, make sure you reach out to a contractor and get the actual numbers. And also ask them, are these firm numbers or are these numbers based on what you're visualizing today? Because sometimes you may think, okay, I need to do a patch on the drywall, and you open it up and there's mold behind it. Or maybe you think I'm going to replace a light and you realize there's not enough circuits and it means that you're going to have to replace the entire breaker box panel. You could find out these things kind of the tough way. When you're looking at different things like I need to replace the roof, you may find out when you strip the roof that the boards underneath need to be done. In houses, there's a lot of hidden repairs, so working with a good contractor that you trust and holding them accountable to the numbers they say is going to be really important when taking on repairs, because there's nothing worse than being a new homeowner and finding out what you thought was a simple replacement of a board comes down to a replacement of the whole entire structure that it's built upon. So really get involved with the contractors. Be mindful to get multiple estimates. Have people really write down what they plan on doing. When looking at estimates from contractors, make sure it doesn't just say replace the light fixture. Say replace the light fixture with what type of light fixture, what brand, how much money is the budget, how much money is the labor versus how much money is the actual materials for the job. Now that's one that a lot of contractors love to do. They love to put the whole entire thing together in a package, throw you the estimate over and say this is how much it's going to cost. Ask them to break it down, because if you're going to be comparing apples to apples, you want to make sure you compare one contractor to another as far as across the entire board. Because if you buy something that's a brand name fixture versus you go in and you just grab the cheapest fixture, you might be talking one guy tells you $500 to replace the light fixture and the other one says $600, and you find out the guy who said $600 is charging you $150 extra labor and putting in a $50 fixture, and the guy charging you $500 is charging you $150 for a fixture, $350 for the labor, and you realize, again, you're getting for less money and better craftsmanship. Or it may be the opposite direction, where the guy who's charging less is charging all labor and giving you absolutely no nice fixture, and the guy who's more money is cheaper in labor because the fixture costs so much money. So make sure you're comparing apples to apples on all estimates that you get, and make sure you really dig in and say, is this all the way? Are we getting everything? Is there unexpecteds, and what percentage of unexpected costs could I possibly run into? Another thing to talk about when talking about buying a home when you're involved in the situation is the talking fast and negotiations. Buyers all the time get excited in these marketplaces where everything's going quick. They put in an offer, it gets denied, and they want to put in an offer right away, and they want to go $5,000 more. Well, negotiation sometimes is about sitting back. And yes, can this mean losing the property? Yes, it can mean losing the property. But often what happens is somebody wants to buy a property. Say it was at $375, they want to buy it for $350. They put in the offer for $350, the person says no, and they come back at them moments later at $355, person says no, moments later at $357, they say no, and they just keep pounding them back with numbers. What this is telling the seller is you're extremely interested and you're not going anywhere, and all they need to do is wait time and you will come up. The bigger thing to do is to offer $350, and when they say no, you say okay, and to walk away and give them the cold shoulder. It's hard to tell how long. It depends on the house, depends on the market, depends on how much you're looking to negotiate. Of course, it's important to get a great agent like we have over here at Momentum Realty that know about negotiations. But you want to think, okay, I'm going to put that in. They say no, I'm going to give them a little bit of time, because if no one else comes in, now instead of going up, maybe you go down. You were at $350, how about you say $348? When they say why, you say, well, it's been 2 weeks and no one has bought the place, so I don't think it's worth what it was worth once. They may then say, oh, you know what, we'll take your old $350 offer. They may not, and they may get angry, but the reality is when you're a negotiator, you can't always just jump right back in, because as soon as you do, you're showing weakness. You're showing them that you need that place and you want that place, and they know with time you're going to go to the number that they wanted you to go to. So just make sure that you take your time and you negotiate properly. And again, very crucial to get a great negotiator like the agents here at Momentum Realty. Another thing that I see a lot of buyers do is they only look at what's new on the market. Every single day they sign into their little online portal, they look at their phone for those Zillow messages, they check it out for a message from us at the real estate office, they jump right on anything new. But what they don't pay attention to are the houses that go back on the market, that go extended, or that have been on the market for a lot of days. Now remember, we were just talking negotiations. There is no better time to negotiate than somebody who isn't selling in the time period that they thought they were going to sell. Time is the ultimate killer of price. When people have the house on for an extremely long period of time and they're not selling, everybody knows what it means. It means that the price is off or that the place needs too much work, which again, similar to that price being off, needing too much work, when it's priced appropriately, someone can afford to do that work. So, end of the day, house isn't selling. Sometimes it's to do with exposure, but often with the modern day world of the internet, it's not due to exposure. It's due to overpricing. So as a buyer, if you're looking to get a good deal, one of the things you want to do is not just look at everything new, but also look at the ones that have been on for a while. A lot of times people go through a home inspection and something goes wrong. It puts it back on the market, which is the back on the market, and everyone's scared of it. Let's put it this way. There's no house in the world that, have you ever driven by one or anything that just has a broken sign on the front and just nobody buys it and it just sits there broken? The reality is no. It just means that there needs to be repairs, and once they've lost the first buyer, they're more than likely more willing to negotiate on those repairs, either to do those repairs, which even sometimes happens. You find houses back on the market. They say, hey, we had a bad home inspection and there were problems, and we ended up fixing them all, so now we're back on the market. So don't be afraid of that, and also don't fall into the category of believing that a home fails home inspection. There are bad home inspections because there's issues, but there's no such thing as failing a home inspection. There's no there's no broken homes. There's just a home that needs some work, and whether the home had caught fire and needs full replacement, or the home had simple water damage and needs replacement of some drywall and rugs, every home can be fixed. So just keep that in mind. And a lot of times when you have these houses that have been on for a long time, or they've come back on the market, the seller might be willing to do the repairs or willing to negotiate the price to make room for you to actually take on those repairs. The biggest mistake I see, and the final mistake I'm going to talk about today, is not working with an agent. And I'm not just saying not working with an agent as in taking it on yourself, which I do believe is a mistake, but also not working with the agent that you have. Make sure to communicate very well with your agent. Let them know what you're looking for and use them. A good agent's going to be willing to work for you hard. An agent that just sits back and asks you to tell them when you want a showing is not an agent at all. It's just somebody looking to take a paycheck. Agents should be sending you forward houses. They should be sending you things you haven't seen. They should be talking to you about what's on the market, what's going on in your marketplace, and how they can help you. They should be your expert negotiator. They should be also looking out to help you make sure that you make the right decisions when having contractors out and getting estimates, and they're there to work with you. The other side, they're actually not working with an agent. A lot of people think they're going to not work with an agent and they're going to save money. I hate to break it to you, but when you call the agent on the sign, that's the listing agent. They now become a dual agent and they just take both commissions. They're not just going to take care of you for free like you think, and they're not going to save you 2.5% on the house value by calling them. It's just going to lead to bad representation. So make sure you get yourself an agent, and when you do get an agent, make sure you work all the way with them. If you're looking for an agent, reach out to us over here at Momentum Realty, and we'd be happy to help. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to PM me, DM me, email me, whatever works best. Love to set you up with one of our agents. Thanks for listening this week, and we look forward to talking to you next week.